After a 10-year relationship, Fu Wenqing still had no intention of marrying me. I couldn't help but ask him if he still planned to marry me. He answered calmly, evading the main issue as if it were just a formality. I looked down at the photo on my phone. His new secretary wore a diamond ring dubbed True Love and a wedding dress that was one of a kind in the world. She smiled and nestled in his arms, while he gazed at her with tender affection. Suddenly, I no longer wanted a future with him. 1. The new secretary is a particularly lively and cheerful girl. As I was leaving work, she smiled and struck up a conversation with me. Is my brother-in-law coming to pick up Hasue today too? I'm so envious of you two, still as sweet as newlyweds after 10 years of dating. Lin Yu, her competitor, let out a derisive chuckle and immediately launched into mockery. Dating for 10 years and still not getting married, isn't that a clear sign he never intended to marry her? To think they're still in love, how pitiful, friend Li Yu retorted angrily. You probably don't know that last month, President Fu paid a high price for that diamond ring symbolizing true love, and I heard from people at President Fu's company that a year ago, he traveled to France to commission a world-unique wedding dress from a renowned designer. Lin Yu's face turned pale in an instant, as if to save face, he left with a parting shot. Don't believe me, just wait and see. Li Yu was about to retaliate, but I stopped her and whispered, let it go, Lin Yu wasn't wrong after all. Fu Wenqing didn't seem to want to marry me. Stepping out of the company, I realized it had started snowing. The cold wind seeped through my scarf and into my neck, freezing me to the bone. I glanced around but didn't see the familiar black KN. I checked my phone. His messages were no longer the familiar 99+, but had long since become just 1 or 2 formulaic notifications. I'm working overtime today. You take a taxi home by yourself. I took a deep breath and dialed the phone back. After a few tens of seconds, the call was slowly picked up on the other end. Hey, what's up? The voice was unnaturally hoarse, and there was a brief, flirtatious female voice. As if someone had warned her to be discreet, I pretended not to notice and asked him, what are you doing? There was the sound of fabric rustling on the other end. And Fu Wenqing's tone became more impatient and irritable. I'm at work. I'll hang up if there's nothing else. Wait, I interrupted him. Do you remember today is our 10th anniversary? Suddenly, there was silence on the other end, and I didn't give him a chance to hesitate or refuse. Speaking again, come pick me up, I'm waiting for you at the office. After saying that, I hung up the phone, too. While waiting for Fu Wenqing, I watched the new secretary smile and say goodbye to me, then turn and run towards the boyfriend she always complained about. His cheeks were red from the cold, but he still smiled and pulled out a roasted sweet potato from his coat. She said they were quite struggling financially, but love doesn't seem to be measured by wealth. I remember those years when Fu Wenqing and I were at our poorest, yet it was also when we loved each other the most. Back then, whenever Fu Wenqing came to pick me up, he would always bring me something delicious. Sometimes candied haws on a stick, sometimes grilled cold noodles. I chided him for wasting money. He just smiled foolishly and said to me, seeing these things makes me want to bring them to you, just to see you enjoy your favorite foods every day. Back then, I sat on the back of a bicycle, and even though I had no money and had suffered a lot at work, I still felt happy. Later, Fu Wenqing kept upgrading his cars, but he never brought anything for me again. Perhaps because he forgot or simply didn't care. It's only a 10-minute drive from his company to mine, but I waited in the freezing wind for a full 2 hours. When he arrived, he saw me waiting at the door, his tone displeased, a hint of irritation in his brow. It's this cold, don't you know to wait inside? Why come out? Was he feeling sorry for me? Are you still blaming me for asking him to pick me up, ruining his fun? I can't figure it out. I spoke calmly. I just thought you might arrive soon. He froze, as if he had thought of something, his eyes awkwardly avoiding mine, and he said to me with some guilt, sorry, traffic was heavy. I'm late, it won't happen again. He reached out, unfolded his coat, wanting to pull me into his embrace. I raised my hand to stop his movement. As soon as he approached, I smelled the mix of unfamiliar shower gel and cloying perfume. I spoke calmly, get in the car, it's freezing. I ignored his hesitation and got into the car. 3. When Fu Wenqing came in, he handed me a box containing the ruby necklace he had bought at the auction last month along with the ring. Alright, don't be upset, I prepared the gift early on, just forgot about it due to being too busy lately. He spoke casually, as if I were just a spoiled child demanding a gift. Fu Wenxing. Let's eat out for this year's anniversary. In previous years, he would always prepare ingredients in advance and cook a full spread, even during the poorest years, when there weren't as many dishes. He never forgot the sense of ritual that should be there. He stared straight ahead, started the car, and casually replied, "Sure, where do you want to go?" He agreed so quickly. "Guess it saves more time to pamper her. How about Li Ji hot pot?" The car suddenly skidded. I pretended not to notice his unconscious fingers curling, and spoke calmly. "It's snowing. The roads are slippery. Drive slower." "Yeah." His expression remained normal, showing no signs of anything unusual. As if he were just asking casually, "Where do you feel like eating?" The new secretary at the company recommended it. She said the hot pot here is really good. "What's up?" I pretended not to know and asked him. Fu Wenxing let out an almost imperceptible sigh of relief. "It's nothing." Throughout the journey, we remained silent. I knew what he was nervous about. The young girl was fond of hot pot and bubble tea, and that shop was one of her regular haunts. I've come across the place she's checked into on her moments more than once. In those photos, I could always make out a blurry figure in the glass window across from me, someone who had accompanied me from youth to maturity, someone I knew all too well. When we arrived, the place was bustling with business. Even so, the owner warmly greeted Fu Wenxing, and when he saw me, his smile faltered for a moment before he replaced it with an even warmer one. "Often here?" I asked Fu Wenxing. He began to explain. "Some clients prefer to discuss collaborations in such an environment." I couldn't help but marvel at how the ups and downs of the business world had made him increasingly mature and reserved, never showing his emotions. If I weren't so familiar with him, I wouldn't have noticed the guilt hidden beneath his calm expression. The waiter led us to the private room they often frequented. Each room in this hotel is uniquely designed, which is a feature of the establishment, and this particular room is where Lin Mai frequently takes photos. Fu Wenxing ordered a yin-yang pot. Probably the boss was held up by someone, or the waiter didn't take it to heart. They served us a spicy red oil hot pot at our table. Fu Wenxing's face suddenly darkened a bit. He quickly had them change it to a yin-yang pot. During this time, he glanced at me several times, relieved to see that my expression remained normal. Fu Wenxing has never been able to handle spicy food since he was a child. When we're together, I always remember to order a few mild dishes. In Lin Mai's social media feed, every photo she posted was of bubbling red oil. I remember the caption she wrote, "My crush can't handle spicy food, but they still came with me." "I heard you recently bought a ring called True Love and that you had a wedding dress custom-made in France a year ago. Is it for me?" I blurted out unexpectedly, and upon hearing this, Fu Wenxing's hand trembled, causing all the shrimp paste to fall on my side. "No, it was requested by a client." He called the waiter over and ordered another portion of shrimp paste. I forced a weak smile, finally unable to hold back, and looked up at him with anticipation. "Fu Wenxing, will you still marry me?" He didn't even look up, speaking in a perfunctory manner. "Of course, I promised you." He poured me a drink, perhaps sensing my unease, and tried to comfort me. Sway, don't overthink it. There's a lot to prepare for the wedding, and I don't want to rush it. After all, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event." I lowered my head and remained silent, staring at the photo Lin Mai had sent me a few hours earlier on my phone. She wore the diamond ring dubbed True Love, donned the one-of-a-kind wedding dress in the world, smiling as she nestled in his embrace, while he gazed at her with tender affection. Fu Wenxing had said something similar a long time ago. Back then, he didn't have money, and his friend was afraid I'd leave him because he was poor, so he suggested we get married first. Back then, he too had said that it wasn't easy for me to be with him. He promised me a wedding that would make every girl in the world envious. But I know he no longer wants to marry me. I pulled out the photos and placed them in front of him. "Is the client you mentioned your secretary?" I thought that with the evidence right in front of him, he would be flustered, uneasy, or even just admit it outright. However, he just lit a cigarette for himself, took several deep puffs, and only then spoke softly. "Lin Mai's boyfriend died in a car accident. She said I look a lot like him and asked me to take a photo with her to fulfill her dream. There's really nothing between us." Hearing this, my eyes stung, and a sharp, prickling pain spread through my heart. "Fu Wenxing, you know, if you truly love someone, you'll notice all their changes right away. I always knew it was you having hot pot with Lin Mai, many times when you came back." I could smell the strong scent of hot pot. You've always had a sweet, cloying perfume scent on you. Fu Wenxing raised his sleeve to smell it, and his face instantly darkened. You never smoked in front of me before. Fu Wenxing looked at me in a daze, immediately snuffed out the cigarette in his hand, and only now did he realize, looking at me in panic, Sui, let me explain, let me finish first. I cut him off. I've been here once before. I used her location from her social media to pinpoint this private room, and I asked the boss if I could book this one. He smiled and told me that this room was reserved by a big shot. His girlfriend loves hot pot. And she really likes this spot because it offers a view of the distant river. He was worried that if she came back and didn't get her favorite seat, she'd be really upset. Oh, and I'm allergic to shrimp. I picked up the shrimp paste in red soup, raised my drink, and said, even drinking mango juice would. Did you take me for her? Fu Wenxing's face grew paler and paler, and he opened his mouth, but no words came out. The more I spoke, the more wronged I felt, until I finally sobbed. And the tears I had been holding back finally fell. Did you really think I didn't know what you were doing during those 2 hours I waited for you? Fu Wenxing's pupils contracted at the words, a flicker of pain crossing his eyes, and eventually his eyes reddened. He walked over, pulled me tightly into his arms, and kept apologizing. I'm sorry, Sui, I was wrong. I really was. It was just a momentary impulse. I'll fire her. I won't let her appear in front of us again. Please forgive me this once. Okay, no good. I shoved him away forcefully, shouting at him in a hoarse voice. Fu Wenxing, I've already forgiven you once. Fu Wenxing forgot, probably about 5 years ago, when we used to chat, he would always unconsciously mention his female investor, saying she took good care of him and valued him highly. I later had a big argument with this investor and broke up with him. He was so panicked that he rushed to her house overnight to beg the investor to come and explain to me. She has a very cute baby, and her husband is much better than me. Now you should believe me, right? Please don't mention breaking up again. I'm really scared. At that time, Fu Wenxing held me tightly, afraid of losing me. Back then, I never understood the meaningful smile of the woman before she left. It wasn't until later that I realized what it meant. Fu Wenxing used her to test my limits. If I showed no concern or chose to endure it out of love for him, his next step would be to cheat without any hesitation, flirting with countless women. However, he never mentioned any other women later, so I decided to give him a chance. It wasn't until Lin Mai appeared. He indulged Lin Mai in taking photos and posting them on social media, letting her wear a wedding dress, put on a ring, and take wedding photos. He allowed her to provoke me. I took a deep breath and let out a bitter laugh. Fu Wenxing, do you think I can't live without you, so you feel free to treat me like this? I admit the sunk cost is indeed huge, and I am deeply entangled in it, but no one is indispensable to anyone. I told you this the first time we broke up. If you can't handle your relationships properly, then I will handle you. Fu Wenxing was sobbing uncontrollably, kneeling on the ground, and tightly gripping my hand. Sui, I was just momentarily confused. I truly know I was wrong, I promise. I swear this is the last time. You know, the past 10 years have been really tough for us. I admit I was distracted by the outside world, but I promise there won't be a next time. 5. These 10 years, we've come through really tough times. Both Fu Wenxing and I came from difficult backgrounds. Fu Wenxing was an orphan, and my parents remarried, neither wanting me. I was raised by my grandfather. We've been competing for the top 2 spots since high school. There were always rumors in class that we were bitter rivals, but no one knew that Fu Wenxing would secretly leave a box of milk in my desk every day, and follow me home after evening self-study. I remember one year, a thug from the vocational school next door took a liking to me and came to my school to harass me, without a word. Fu Wenxing fought him, getting himself blooded and battered, like a man possessed. After that, no one dared to bother me anymore, because they all knew Fu Wenxing was a madman. After graduating from high school, we naturally got together. After graduating from university, we were both determined not to give up. Driven by sheer will, we insisted on staying in Beijing, a city where space comes at a premium. We lived in dark, damp basements and shared a single bowl of instant noodles. In his first year of starting a business, he lost a significant amount of money. To repay the debt, he worked 3 jobs a day. We lived frugally, pinching pennies every day. I remember, back then, A wealthy young master took a liking to me and wanted me to be with him. Fu Wenxing, with red eyes. Broke up with me. What's good about being with me? You suffer and toil. You should choose someone better. I was head over heels for him and refused to break up no matter what. He cried so hard his whole body shook as he hugged me, apologizing and promising that he would make sure I had a good life in the future. Later, his company began to thrive. The first money he earned, he took me to buy a 1-carat diamond ring. Holding my hand, he smiled and said he would buy me a bigger one in the future. Looking back now, it's quite ironic. I pushed him away with all my strength, tears streaming down my face. You know about our 10 years of feelings, Fu Wenxing. You've wronged me. I threw all my punches at Fu Wenxing without holding back, and he took them silently, not uttering a word. Just then, Lin Mai's call broke the deadlock. I watched as Fu Wenxing picked up the phone, frowned, and hung up. The call persisted, and Fu Wenxing, looking livid, wanted to turn off his phone. I watched coldly. Answer it, in case it's something important. Out of consideration for me, Fu Wenxing didn't hide from me as he usually did when answering calls, but instead put it on speaker. A hesitant voice came from across the way. Aixing, I'm in the bathroom at the bar right now. There's someone harassing me. Can you come pick me up? Fu Wenxing cursed loudly, his words cold and heartless. What does it have to do with me? Don't forget your place, Lin Mai. Starting tomorrow, you don't need to come to work anymore, and you're not allowed to appear in front of me again. Otherwise, you won't get off easy. Lin Mai couldn't believe it. Her voice choked with emotion. What do you mean? You're breaking up with me, right? Why? Ah Sheng, don't you love me? You even said you were going to marry. Shut up. Fu Wenxing cut her off harshly. I will only ever marry He Sui. I lied to you. I never liked you. It was just a game to me. Lin Mai let out a shrill laugh. And after a long while, she spoke in a sinister tone. Fu Wenxing, I'm pregnant. I'm giving you half an hour. If you don't come, I'll kill your child. The next second, the call was disconnected. Fu Wenxing stared blankly at the disconnected call, unable to snap out of it. His hand unconsciously gripped the phone tightly, his knuckles turning white. After a dozen seconds, it seemed he had made up his mind, his tone earnest. Sui. I asked him, are you going? Are you going to leave me again for her? Fu Wenxing hesitated, unable to speak. Finally, he spoke cautiously. After all, it's a life, isn't it? He was waiting for me to make a decision, hoping I would allow him to leave to ease his guilt, but I hesitated to nod. He watched the seconds tick by, and finally, he couldn't help but stand up. Sui. I'll just take a quick look and come back. Wait for me. He was so eager that he didn't even wait for my reply and quickly walked to the door. As he pressed the handle, I smiled and spoke up. Fu Wenxing, I actually had a secret to tell you today, but it doesn't matter anymore. But he didn't have time to respond. He was hurriedly making a phone call and left, opening the door. When the footsteps outside gradually faded away, I composed myself, took out a handkerchief from my bag, and slowly wiped away my tears. From a young age, I knew that tears were the best weapon, second only to fists, especially when they were beautiful tears that evoked pity. I was raised by my grandfather, and the kids in the courtyard always called me a bastard with no father or mother. I would always smile as I beat them until they were bruised and battered, then cry like a delicate flower when the teacher arrived, making it impossible to scold me. Even Fu Wenxing doesn't know that even if he didn't come, that thug who blocked me, I would make him pay the price in my own way. I've always been the type to repay kindness with gratitude and enmity with vengeance. So, Fu Wenxing, Lin Mai, how could I possibly let you off the hook? Fu Wenxing must feel deep guilt toward me now. And whatever conditions I set next, he will agree to, and Lin Mai, who is carrying his child, certainly won't let things rest. I twirled the USB drive in my hand, a faint smile playing on my lips. Fu Wenxing, if you knew what you missed, how regretful you would be. I walked out of the private room, took the envelope from my bag, and handed it to the boy who had just brought the hot pot base. Thank you for your hard work. This is your payment. 6. Fu Wenxing came to find me the next morning. His eyes looked tired, with bloodshot veins visible beneath them, as if he hadn't slept well. Sui, I've already made it clear to her yesterday. She won't appear in front of us anymore. Here's her resignation letter. Can you give me another chance? He looked at me with caution, almost humbly. I ignored his gaze, raised my hand to take a sip of black coffee, and then spoke slowly. What about the child? Fu Wensheng's eyelashes fluttered involuntarily, and after a long silence, he spoke, Sway. Don't worry, I'll make sure she gets an abortion. I let out a cold laugh in my heart. It was a little habit he had when he was lying, and I forced myself to speak despite the disgust. We've had 10 years of feelings together, and I can't bear to just let it all end like this. Do you remember when we used to huddle in the basement? That winter was so cold, and we squeezed onto one bed. Back then, you told me that when we got rich in the future, you'd buy me a huge house, install underfloor heating, give me the best life, and live stream our wedding so everyone would know I was the happiest bride. He picked up on the possibility of a reconciliation from my words and nodded happily. I remember everything, I chuckled softly. I'll give you one last chance, but you must agree to 3 conditions. No matter how many conditions, I'll agree to them all. Whatever you want, I'll give you. I raised my hand to stop him from speaking. Don't get too excited yet. Listen to my demands. First, I want Lin Mai to leave Beijing forever. Second, I want a live-streamed wedding of the century. Third, I want to receive Lin Mai's abortion report. Fu Wensheng's smile became a bit forced, but I've lost patience dealing with him. Get these 3 things done, then come find me. Oh, and I've already moved my stuff out. You don't need to pick me up anymore. He grabbed my hand in disbelief, his voice rising involuntarily. You moved out, why didn't you tell me? I pulled my hand away, sneering. How many times have you been back in the past 2 months? You didn't notice my things were gone because you simply didn't care. On those rare occasions, you half-heartedly dealt with me while fully engrossed in chatting with Lin Mai. Fu Wensheng, I've already moved out for several days. I stopped him from uttering an apology. This is your last chance. I hope you don't disappoint me. This is your last chance. You'd better fall for it. 3 days later, Fu Wensheng appeared downstairs at my company as I was leaving work. He leaned against his car, holding a bouquet of bright white jasmine. I took the flowers indifferently, got into the passenger seat, and casually tossed them onto the back seat. His face darkened for a moment, but he said nothing and handed me an envelope. This is Lin Mai's abortion report. I carefully examined the report in front of me, confirmed it, and then put it away. Fu Wensheng let out a sigh of relief, his brows and eyes relaxing as if he had accomplished something significant. I clenched my phone with a cold smile, reading Lin Mai's provocative message. You cheap woman. Do you really think Sheng would abandon me? He said he'll send me abroad to rest and have the baby, and once the child is born, he'll bring me and the baby back. I'm telling you, Sheng doesn't love you anymore. He said that if it weren't for the 10 years you spent with him, he would have married me. I turned off my phone and took a deep breath. It's okay, Lin Mai, you'll get your karma soon enough. 8. The wedding is set for the end of this month. I'm handling most of the arrangements, and I can't afford any mistakes at this crucial moment. But Fu Wensheng thought I had truly forgiven him, and every day he happily handed out wedding candies to everyone. Soon it was my wedding day, and all the guests were influential figures I had personally selected, including the general manager of the Shen Group, Shen Yuan, with whom Fu Wensheng had recently been closely collaborating. I adjusted my wedding dress and slowly walked towards Fu Wensheng, where a large screen behind him was playing a montage of our 10 years together. Back then, he loved me so much. His phone was filled with our photos, and he would eagerly document everything I did, never tiring of it. Fu Wensheng stood across from me, looking at me, perhaps swept up in the tension of the moment. His eyes were slightly teary, and his hand holding the microphone trembled uncontrollably. But just then, the large screen unexpectedly played intimate photos of Fu Wensheng and Lin Mai, along with some unsavory audio recordings. Fu Wensheng, are you really going to abort our child? He's your own flesh and blood. Fu Wensheng's steady voice came through. No worries, you can rest assured. After all, it's my child, and I will definitely ensure a safe and smooth birth. Then why did you marry her? Can't you break up with her? I have no choice. We've been together for 10 years, and I owe her an explanation. Otherwise, it would have a bad impact on the company. Don't worry. Haven't I given you everything except that marriage certificate? Look, I gave you the wedding dress and the ring because you wanted them. You are my first bride, and since we've been together, I haven't slept with her again, as you asked. My first child was also born from your womb. Rest assured, I won't mistreat you. Fu Wensheng was panic-stricken, his face ashen, and he shouted harshly, Close it quickly. What are you even doing? The staff hurried over to close the video. But the computer was hacked and couldn't be shut down at all. Fu Wenxing couldn't care less and staggered towards me. Sway, listen to me. Just then, Lin Mai walked in wearing the auctioned wedding dress and the ring. Sheng, I've thought it through. I don't care about those things. As long as we're together, that's enough. Come with me, let's go together and give our baby a home. Fu Wenxing stopped in his tracks, his gaze at Lin Mai cold and devoid of any emotion, as he coldly said. Get lost if you know what's good for you, or I absolutely won't let you off. Lin Mai smiled with determination, picked up a Western-style knife from the dining table, and pressed it against her neck. Sheng, if you insist on marrying her today, I'll die right here. In the next moment, blood gushed from Lin Mai's neck. Fu Wenxing's face changed instantly as he shouted without any regard for his image. No, Lin Mai, please, I don't want anything anymore, I'll go with you. He held her and ran out quickly, leaving the remaining guests looking at each other awkwardly and leaving in embarrassment. I didn't even have time to take off my wedding dress and quickly stopped Shen Yuan. 9. Mr. Shen, this is the proposal I've prepared for the East City project. I hope you can take a look. Shen Yuan is not easy to approach. I've been stopped at the door several times and haven't even had a chance to speak, however, once today's live-streamed wedding goes public. Fu Wenxing's company stock will definitely drop. The Shen Group is in a hurry to find another company to partner with, making this the perfect opportunity. He looked up at me upon hearing this, raising an eyebrow. Miss, he just experienced betrayal, yet she doesn't seem to be upset. I gave a faint smile. If things don't go well in love, you have to get something somewhere else, right? You can't have nothing on both ends. He looked at me with interest, his gaze lowered, and spoke slowly. Even if I didn't cooperate with the Fu Group, there were several more suitable companies before Juxing. Why did I have to give you this opportunity? I looked directly into his eyes without flinching, smiling calmly. Mr. Shen, I never go into anything unprepared. If you give me this chance, I believe you will make the right judgment. Only I can fulfill your ambitions. 3 years ago, after graduating from university, Shen Yuan took over the family business. In just 2 years, he managed to make his ambitious uncles and cousins settle down, appearing carefree. But if there's something I want, I will get it. Once I pass Shen Yuan's test, the collaboration between Shen Corporation and Juxing will be a done deal. He slowly curved his lips into a smile and took my project proposal. Before leaving, he pointed at my wedding dress and said with rare seriousness, if you need any help, you can come to me. I smiled and declined, knowing it was a done deal. My revenge could only bring me peace if I took it myself. As expected, Fu Wenxing's company stock plummeted dramatically. The live broadcast of the wedding went viral, and within a day, both of them were viciously attacked on social media. To avoid getting involved, various companies halted their cooperation with the Fu Corporation and continuously demanded compensation from them. Soon, Fu Wenxing declared bankruptcy. The day after Shen Yuan received the project proposal, he came to discuss the details with me, and my promotion paperwork was also approved. A few months ago, I told the chairman that I could secure the coveted Chengdong Development Zone project, and all I wanted was to become the general manager of Juxing. As I had been stuck in the deputy general manager position for far too long, as expected, everything is proceeding according to my plan. Ever since 5 years ago, I knew Fu Wenxing's heart would always wander. Shen Yuan said I wasn't sad, but he didn't know that after accidentally discovering the true intentions of that female investor, I had cried until I suffered from alkalosis, and I had spent countless nights sleepless, wondering if there was another woman I didn't know about accompanying him. During that time, I tormented myself to the point of exhaustion. I had thought about ending the relationship, but during the earthquake, he shielded me without regard for his own safety. In the hospital, as I looked at one critical notice after another, I thought that if he could pull through this, I would let go of the past and live a good life with him. I decided not to hold grudges, until Lin Mai appeared. Fu Wenxing had clearly fallen for Lin Mai, and while I had expected it, this time I was unusually calm. Back then, I couldn't even get into projects at the Shen Group, and I had been stuck in the vice president position for far too long. So, when I found out about his flirtation with Lin Mai, I didn't immediately break up with him. After 10 years with a man, I had to extract some value from him. Or else this relationship would have been too pathetic. 10. Over the past few months, I've been working on the Chengdong Development Zone project and have gradually gotten closer to Shenyuan. Today, most of the work is done, with just a few details left to double-check. Shenyuan suggested we all go out for a meal. At the dinner table, the other project leader smiled and said to me, Mr. He, you should try the drunken shrimp here. The drunken shrimp at WNG Lu is truly exceptional. Before I could speak, a deep, magnetic voice rang out, she's allergic to shrimp. Everyone looked up at the big boss, then at me, and the project leader, sensing the awkward atmosphere, quickly changed the subject. Li Yu, looking at the person across from her, whispered to me, do you think President Shen likes you? At first, Shenyuan treated me strictly professionally. I was only responsible for reporting the project progress at Monday meetings, while everything else was coordinated and advanced with the project leader. Gradually, he treated me a bit differently. Perhaps because he never let anyone sit in the passenger seat, but always drove me home after work, or maybe it was the way he paid attention to my dietary restrictions when he invited me to dinner. During my period, there would always be a cup of warm brown sugar water waiting for me on the table. I looked at the person across from me, with sharp, refined features and a faint, almost imperceptible smile. His demeanor was casual and laid-back yet exuded an air of elegance. His eyes, like the depths of an ancient well, were unfathomable, and at this moment, he was looking straight at me without any. I smiled without a word. After the dinner, Shenyuan and I walked at the back. He looked at me and spoke casually. What were you just thinking about? During the gathering, Lin Mai once again sent me provocative messages, and it's happening more and more frequently. It seems Fu Wenxing has started to regret it, otherwise she wouldn't be so furious. After Fu Wenxing and Lin Mai left, I heard from an old friend that they secretly got married but didn't dare to have a wedding. That's probably why Fu Wenxing has been treating Lin Mai even better. He started a small company with the intention of living a good life with Lin Mai. However, for some unknown reason, Lin Mai began to buy luxury bags without restraint, demanding to travel abroad. If he didn't agree, she would threaten him with their child. Fu Wenxing was at his wit's end. And they had had more than one major argument. Later, Lin Mai deleted my WeChat from Fu Wenxing's phone. They had a huge fight and trashed the house. From that day on, Fu Wenxing rarely came home, and Lin Mai spent her days crying at home. I saw Fu Wenxing's request again and smiled as I added him back. I've never been known for my good temper. I knew Lin Mai didn't want to lose to me, so I posted pictures of the luxury items I bought, the scenic photos from my travels, and finally, my carefully selected selfies on my social media. With all this, how could Lin Mai possibly let it go? It's just one step away now. If you ruin my good life, what right do you have to live well yourselves? My revenge doesn't end here. I looked at Shenyuan, who was still waiting for my response, and began to speak. Mr. Shen, can I take advantage of you for a moment? Shenyuan raised an eyebrow, half smiling. You're quite straightforward, until I took him to Li Ji Hot Pot. Snapped a somewhat ambiguous photo, and added the caption, someone will always join me for a super spicy hot pot. He watched my movements, his fingertips lightly tapping the table, a smile playing on his lips. You're really ruthless, but I have to commend you. You're very capable, and I like that. I remember the second time we met, he was just as nonchalant. You're too ruthless, but there's no denying your abilities are strong. I can't refuse. I brushed off his ambiguous compliment. A slight smile playing on my lips, I stood up, gazing at the brightly lit river scene in the distance, and turned back to ask him, how long do you think it will take him to get here? Shenyuan elegantly swirled the orange juice in his wine glass, speaking indifferently, I don't know, but the person I brought out, I have to take them back. 20 minutes later, Fu Wenxing pushed open the door of the private room, gasping for breath. If he remembered correctly, it should take at least 30 minutes to get from his company to this restaurant. Sway. Fu Wenxing had lost a lot of weight, and his face showed the weariness of someone burdened by life. His suit no longer fit well, and he carefully examined me, then turned to look at Shenyuan, who was leaning on his chin, bored, beside me, and slightly frowned. Sway, can we talk alone? I glanced at Shenyuan. He stood up briskly, sauntered out the door with a casual demeanor, deliberately bumping his shoulder against Fu Wenxing as he passed. 2 seconds later, the door opened again. And Shun Yuan leaned against the wall with a carefree attitude, nodding his chin at me. I'm right outside, if anything happens, just call me, and I'll beat the crap out of him. Having said that, he reverted to his dignified gentlemanly demeanor and closed the door gracefully. 11. Fu Wenqing looked at me for a long time before finally asking me, how have you been lately? I nodded. I've been doing just fine since you left. After all, I was the one who did those things. Getting revenge on you has given me a sense of satisfaction. He awkwardly rubbed his nose. Yuan Shen Yuan, you. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with hope, and I met his gaze without flinching. Whatever relationship I have with him is none of your business, is it? Fu Wenqing lowered his head, tugged at the corner of his mouth, and spoke with difficulty. I regret it, Sway. After I got together with Lin Mai, she never considered my feelings. She spends money recklessly, and she always argues with me because of you. She deleted your WeChat, checks my phone every day. I really regret it. I should have made her get rid of that child. I silently listened to his complaints. And only after he finally calmed down did I take out a USB drive from my bag. He looked at me with confusion. I rarely explain patiently. Actually, that day in this private room, I wanted to give it to you. I originally wanted to live a good life with you. As long as you looked at this information, you would cut ties with Lin Mai cleanly. But then you unwaveringly chose her and wanted to live a good life with her. I didn't think it was necessary to bring it up anymore, however. I heard that you two are getting a divorce recently. After thinking it over, I still wanted to show it to you. You'll know after you read it. I didn't pay attention to what else he wanted to say to me, grabbed my bag, and walked out the door. I remember a long time ago, when Fu Wenqing talked about his background, he joked that he was probably abandoned by his parents. Later, when we had some money, I remembered the expression on his face back then. So I started secretly searching for his parents without his knowledge. There was no news for all these years, until Lin Mai's appearance, which finally gave the private investigator some leads. Fu Wenqing was the heir to the prestigious Lin Corporation, and he wasn't lost. He was kidnapped by Lin Mai's biological parents. However, during the kidnapping, Fu Wenqing managed to escape and was taken in by a local orphanage. The persistent high fever caused him to lose this memory, and he couldn't recall being lured out to play by a little girl, only to suffer a terrible fate. That girl was Lin Mai. After that, Fu Wenqing's biological parents spent all their savings searching for him, eventually having to declare bankruptcy. The two elderly parents, burdened by excessive worry, passed away the year before last. In fact, even if he had seen this information at the time, it might not have evoked much emotion. After all, back then, he had everything he could want and might not have valued family ties and blood relations, but now he has lost everything. The unspoken words from that moment at the hot pot restaurant will be remembered at any time. From that moment on, he took a wrong turn and lost everything. 12. That day, after returning, Fu Wenqing and Lin Mai had an unprecedented argument. Fu Wenqing accused Lin Mai and her family of ruining his life. Lin Mai said she was pregnant with Fu Wenqing's child, and unless she died, Fu Wenqing would never be able to get rid of her for the rest of his life. In a fit of anger, Fu Wenqing got into a physical altercation with Lin Mai. In the end, Lin Mai lost her child, suffered severe physical injuries, and spent a full 3 months in the hospital. Fu Wenqing was sentenced to 3 years in prison for negligent injury. After hearing these stories from Li Yu and me, I didn't feel much. It was all expected. Lin Mai had a low education, was unprofessional in her work, and now had a limp. She wouldn't last long in Beijing. Fu Wenqing served time in prison, and it's said that he's now mentally unstable. They both got what they deserved. I sipped my coffee and watched as Li Yu winked at me. Turning my head, I saw Shen Yuan holding a bouquet of roses, his usual casual and playful demeanor gone, his earlobes tinged with an unnatural flush. Last time you said if I truly liked you, I could pursue you. Now I've thought it through, I really do like you. So this is the first day of my pursuit. I reached out and took the flowers from him, meeting his expectant gaze. I remember when I was with Fu Wenqing, he always gave me jasmine. He said I was as pure and innocent as it. But I'm more like a rose, who gets its fragrance and who gets its thorns is up to me. Story 2. I gathered all my winter clothes and was carefully folding them into the suitcase. The front door suddenly swung open, and someone crept in quietly. A pair of large hands enveloped me from behind. icy fingers covering my eyelids. "Guess who I am?" He deliberately lowered his voice, making it deep and magnetic, just like he always did when he returned from a business trip and teased me. In the past, I would have laughed and said, "Of course it's my handsome Jiang," then tenderly warmed his hands with mine. But now, I no longer feel that same sweetness, nor do I have the heart to play along. I pushed his hand away and silently went back to folding clothes. My boyfriend Jiang Yufeng froze in disbelief, his cold fingers curling into fists before he lowered his gaze like a drenched puppy and asked pitifully, Ran, what's wrong? Hasn't a month of giving me the cold shoulder been enough? I had to explain to all the guests for ages after you suddenly crashed the wedding ceremony." A sarcastic smile tugged at the corner of my lips. "A month ago, I became the laughingstock in the eyes of all my relatives and friends, because my groom married someone else right in front of everyone. My mother had a heart attack because of it, and Jiang Yufeng drove me out of the venue like a beggar, leaving me utterly humiliated. Even on the day of my mother's funeral, everyone in the village still pointed at me with mocking looks. That's her, the one whose fiancé ran off on their wedding day, and she's supposed to be some top student. Almost 30 and still left on the shelf. How shameful. I heard she literally drove her own mother to an early grave. I always said daughters are useless, they'll never support you in old age." That damp, suffocating feeling from my mother's burial wrapped around me once more, but my tears had long since run dry. Coming back to my senses, I spoke calmly. "It's not a cold war. Let's break up." Those 5 words never made it past my lips, yet Jiang Yufeng nodded, drawing out a lazy O, and said with utter nonchalance, "This isn't the silent treatment, we're actually arguing, aren't we? Didn't I text you an explanation? Ningru's husband left her, and our families go way back. Helping her out won't kill you." He plopped onto the couch like he owned the place, picked up a grayish sweater, and started clumsily folding it for me with his head down. Beneath his tousled bangs, his handsome brows furrowed slightly, and his thin lips twitched almost imperceptibly. "This sweater looks downright awful. You might as well just toss it." I didn't say anything, just stared blankly at the silver wedding band on his ring finger, finally realizing what that unusually cold sensation had been when it pressed against my eyelid earlier. Jiang Yufeng followed my gaze and, as if feeling guilty, quickly slipped off the ring and tucked it into his pocket. Then he blinked, trying to brush it off like he always did. "Gotta commit to the act, you know, forgot to take it off. You're not getting jealous again, are you, Ran? I'm not actually upset at all. It just suddenly came back to me, when he proposed to me at the dinner table. He reached out and asked if I would marry him without even having a ring ready. He said he forgot and didn't like the feeling of being constrained by a ring, promising to make it up on our wedding day with a custom DR ring. Yet in the end, he slipped that custom-made ring perfectly onto Ningru's finger. Despite hating constraints, he wore the wedding band with sheer delight, never wanting to take it off. Angry. I'll never be angry again. For the past month, I've been torturing myself by watching news reports of Jiang Yufeng and Ningru honeymooning and traveling the world, but now my heart feels completely numb. I averted my gaze, didn't respond, and simply took the sweater from his hands, saying flatly, "This is a wool sweater my mother knitted for me with her own hands." Jiang Yufeng's hand was suddenly left empty. He was already somewhat displeased, pressing his lips together slightly, yet he kept his temper in check and said gently, "By the way, how is your mother's health? A month of rest should have her mostly recovered by now, right?" His eyes crinkled as he smiled and said, "I always felt our wedding venue was too modest for you. Let's take this chance to pick a new date and throw a lavish wedding. It'll make your mother happy too." I knew Jiang Yufeng was in such a good mood today that he'd been handing me olive branches left and right. If I didn't take the hint, he'd surely throw another spoiled tantrum, but he forgot. On our wedding registration day, he told the Civil Affairs Bureau he'd forgotten our household register, then immediately went with Ningru, whose own fiancé was absent, to help her try on wedding dresses. We never actually registered our marriage, and we didn't need any wedding ceremony either. Coming back to my senses, I just offered a bitter smile, unnecessary. After being repeatedly given the cold shoulder, Jiang Yufeng's expression darkened abruptly. Just as he was about to speak, his phone rang. When he saw the name Ruru on the screen, his features softened and his voice became surprisingly gentle. "I just got home. Why are you calling?" Not knowing what was said on the other end of the line, he tucked the phone between his shoulder and ear, picked up the black trench coat from the coat rack, and chuckled. Ningru, you're really pushing your luck. I'm still trying to smooth things over with my girlfriend. You know, this is the last time, I swear. I watched helplessly as he deftly slipped on the ring, adjusted his collar and hair in the floor-length mirror, grabbed his car keys, and made to leave. It wasn't until his hand was on the doorknob that he seemed to remember I was still there. He turned back in a hurry, ruffled my hair with his large hand, and said affectionately, "All right, Ran, stop fooling around. I got you a little gift, I'll give it to you tonight." I watched him leave, then turned and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. Through the glass, I spotted a bright pink sports car parked downstairs, its chassis so low it seemed to hug the ground. Ningru leaned against the car door, happily sipping her bubble tea. Despite his usual fastidiousness, Jiang Yufeng effortlessly bent down and took a sip through the same straw she'd used, then settled into the driver's seat. I turned away and drew the curtains shut. I turned around and picked up the fully completed expatriate application form from the desk. 2. Running my fingers over the crisp edge of the application form, I headed out without hesitation and hailed a cab to the office. After a full day of packing, evening had already settled in. I'd applied for the overseas assignment through the system a couple of days ago and got approved, now just needed to submit the paperwork for records. At the office, everyone was whispering and glancing my way. Is that the person who caused a scene at CEO Jiang's wedding in the video? Hey, didn't they take bereavement leave and disappear a while back? How dare they show their face now? My guess is they're probably here to resign. They've been with the company for 10 years and are still just a team lead. Rumor has it they applied for promotion 5 times and got rejected every time. Pretty pathetic, if you ask me. Those harsh comments used to really get me down, but now they just roll right off my back. After all, I heard plenty of similar snide remarks while arranging my mother's funeral. Without glancing sideways, I knocked on the office door of my female boss, Director Wang. "Come in." Director Wang looked at the form in my hand and nodded with satisfaction, saying, Ran, when you mentioned the overseas assignment the other day, I didn't believe it at first. Last time we discussed it, you said you couldn't bear a long-distance relationship and wanted to stay with your boyfriend. This time, you're surprisingly decisive. Corporate is sending someone to check on the expat assignments tomorrow. Just swing by the office to show your face, then you're free to go, you know. We started as interns together. You were always more capable than me and helped me out countless times. I'm glad you've finally come around to this decision. It's for the best. I lowered my gaze. Yeah, maybe it's just bad timing. Everyone from my intern cohort moved up to executive roles, while I've been stuck in the same place. Walking out of the office, I turned back to look at the skyscraper where I'd poured my heart and soul into for 10 years, over the past decade. Jiang Yufeng's family business has grown stronger and stronger, with even the branch office buildings now towering into the clouds. Yet why has my relationship with Jiang Yufeng completely fallen apart instead? My encounter with Jiang Yufeng was a classic tale of a wealthy young master and a Cinderella. My father passed away early, and I was raised single-handedly by my mother. Back then, aside from attending classes, I squeezed every spare minute into part-time gigs, even covering lectures for others. Things took a turn when a girl not only skipped out on paying me for the class I covered, but also brought her roommate to corner me, demanding I hand over all the money I had. Just as I was drowning in despair, Jiang Yufeng showed up with his bodyguard, pulled me up from the ground, and even offered to treat me to a meal. Blushing, he admitted his grades were poor and he was worried about failing, so he asked if I could help him cram for finals. I knew he was actually a top student all along. This was just his way of helping me out. I was drawn to his naturally sunny and upbeat personality, as if he'd never faced a setback in his life. On the day I said yes to his confession, he held my hand and announced to everyone on campus, "This is my brilliant and beautiful girlfriend." Upon graduation, I turned down the government-sponsored opportunity to study abroad. Later, I walked away from a high-paying executive job at a major international company. All I wanted was to stay by Jiang Yufeng's side, dreaming of a simple life together, marriage, children, growing old with him. But everything changed a year ago. The day Ningru, his childhood friend who'd been abroad, returned. That day, Jiang Yufeng abandoned me while I was sick for the first time, just to pick up Ningru from the airport. That night, he got completely drunk at the welcome dinner, clinging to Ningru's hand and refusing to leave with me. with red-rimmed eyes. He pleaded, "Ruru, please don't leave me this time, okay?" From then on, Ning-ru became the constant source of arguments between us. I just wanted him to respect some boundaries, but he accused me of being too controlling, saying I wouldn't even let him have any friends. He even said with a sarcastic tone that, when you think about it, Ning-ru has known him since childhood, making me the one who came along later, until 2 months ago, on the day Ning-ru sent him a wedding invitation. He, who had rejected my hints about marriage 99 times, suddenly put a piece of spare rib in my bowl and muttered gloomily, Ran, what if we got married too?" Shaking my head, I cast aside the memories of the past, my figure stretching long and solitary in the fading sunlight. In this world, I no longer have a single family member left. After just a few steps, the sky grew completely dark. I was just about to pull out my phone to call a ride home. A familiar, affectionate laugh sounded in my ear, saying, "Ning-ru, hold on tight, or I won't be responsible if I drop you later." Turning my head, I saw the neon-lit entrance of a bar. Jiang Yufeng was carefully carrying Ning-ru in a princess hold, spinning around as if in a romantic drama. Ning-ru clung tightly to Jiang Yufeng's neck, her skirt billowing as she laughed joyfully like a true princess. A circle of onlookers gathered around them, cheering and egging them on. "All right, just 3 more laps. Go Jiang Yufeng. Don't forget to share a toast with your wife after you stop. Ning-ru is so beautiful." Back when we played house as kids, Jiang Yufeng fought us all to be the prince, who knew they'd end up as the perfect prince and princess pair after all. Jiang Yufeng beamed with pride as he gently set down the slightly dizzy Ning-ru, handling her like a delicate piece of porcelain. Then, he and Ning-ru took the wine glasses offered by those nearby, linking arms skillfully as they drank a toast. Instantly, the surrounding cheers grew louder, with everyone clapping and chanting, "Kiss, kiss." Jiang Yufeng froze, not moving a muscle. Ning-ru stepped in with a smile to defend him. "Didn't we just say this was the last event? The wedding festivities have gone on long enough, everyone should probably head home." But the next second, Jiang Yufeng wrapped his arm around Ning-ru's waist and kissed her. His eyes were wide open, clear and gentle, yet filled with an intense possessiveness deep within. The next moment, he averted his gaze, slowly released Ning-ru's hand, and feigned drunkenness by clutching his head. "I want to go home, my head hurts so much." I took in every detail of Jiang Yufeng's careful affection and deep concern for Ning-ru. I could only watch helplessly as he unsteadily pulled out his phone and made a call. Then, my phone started ringing, just a few meters away. Hearing the ringtone, Jiang Yufeng straightened up the moment our eyes met. 3. Everyone looked at us with suspicion as we exchanged glances, then turned to Jiang Yufeng and asked, "Yufeng, who's this pretty girl?" Jiang Yufeng's eyes darted evasively as he mumbled, "She's our housekeeper's daughter, probably here because my mom sent her to call me home for dinner." Ning-ru's eyes sparkled with smug satisfaction, adopting the demeanor of a devoted wife as she deliberately enunciated each word. "Oh, so you're the housekeeper's daughter, you'd better take good care of your young master." If this were the old me, I would have tearfully confronted Jiang Yufeng, demanding to know who truly held his heart. Now, I just found it all tiresome, couldn't even be bothered to spare a glance, before turning away and getting into the ride-hail car I'd called earlier. After getting home, I hadn't eaten all afternoon, and a sharp pain shot through my stomach, so I boiled myself a bowl of plain noodles. I'd only taken a couple of bites when I heard the click-clack of high heels outside. The next second, Jiang Yufeng kicked the door open. Seeing me eating, he frowned and snatched the chopsticks right out of my hand. "Xia Ran, why did you just turn and walk away? Do you have any idea how embarrassed I was?" What surprised me even more was that Ning-ru followed along as well. She looked worried as she held onto Jiang Yufeng's arm and said gently, "Yufeng, Ran is a girl after all. Didn't we agree to speak to her calmly?" She turned to me with a smile, barely concealing the triumph in her eyes. Ran, please don't be angry. Yufeng has always had a temper since childhood, he's only patient with me. Never with others. But you're not entirely blameless either. He was drunk, how could you just leave him alone?" I grabbed another pair of chopsticks, scooped up a mouthful of plain noodles, and found them utterly tasteless. Without looking up, I replied to Jiang Yufeng, "With your wife taking care of you, why would you even need me?" Jiang Yufeng's face darkened, the atmosphere around him turning icy as he said coldly, "What wife? Xia Ranran, are you seriously jealous? Those are just some acquaintances from our circle. Ning Gru and I were just putting on a show. Do you think I enjoy drinking? I did it all for you. I found it utterly absurd. He was clearly enjoying his intimate moments with Ning Gru, so why does he look so aggrieved now? I set down my chopsticks and turned to Jiang Yufeng with a questioning look. For me, Jiang Yufeng said matter-of-factly. It's all for you. My father said he'd only name me as the company's successor if I marry Ning Gru. That's the only way we can be together, and the only way I can transfer you to headquarters. Everything I'm doing is for you and your career. Ning Gru's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly, a flicker of malice in her eyes as she feigned agreement. Yufeng is absolutely right. What you don't know is that all those promotion applications you submitted over the years, he deliberately rejected them to protect you. He's gone to such lengths for your sake. I froze. A sudden chill shot through to the crown of my head, so cold it made me shiver. All these years I've been pushing myself to the limit, trying to stand shoulder to shoulder with Jiang Yufeng through my own efforts. But now, Ning Gru told me that all my efforts were just wasted by Jiang Yufeng. All those proposals I worked on through sleepless nights, the contracts I signed only after drinking until I vomited blood, the sacrifices of not taking any vacations and barely seeing my mother's face. What does any of that even mean now? My nose stung, my eyes instantly reddened, and I questioned Jiang Yufeng with a choked voice. Is this true? Jiang Yufeng didn't feel the slightest bit guilty. Instead, he nodded as if seeking praise. That's right, don't worry, in the future. You'll be the CEO's wife of the Jiang family. You'll have everything you could ever want. What's a few missed promotions compared to that? Suddenly, it all struck me as utterly ridiculous. Jiang Yufeng had always insisted on keeping our relationship under wraps, even when we got married. He insisted I only invite my closest family and friends, no big announcement. No one had a clue about our relationship. His so-called protection was just empty words. It was all about feeding his need to control me by putting me down, so I'd orbit around him. Only now do I see it. What I thought was love and sincerity was never pure. I shook my head and finally blurted out what was in my heart. Jiang Yufeng, let's break up. Jiang Yufeng's eyes widened instantly, staring at me in disbelief. His lips trembled, but not a single word came out. A glint of delight flashed in Ning Gru's eyes as she quickly scolded, Xia Ranran. You can't break up with Yufeng just because he and I are close. He truly loves you even during your honeymoon. His first instinct upon seeing something unique was to give it to you. Even now, she had to bring up the honeymoon to upset me. Ning Gru is truly disgusting. With someone backing him up. Jiang Yufeng snapped back to reality and grew even angrier, his handsome face hardening like a sheet of ice. Xia Ranran, are you really getting carried away now? Do you think you've got me all figured out? Breaking up? Who gave you the right to suggest breaking up with me? For the past 10 years, you've been living off me, eating my food, spending my money, and I even got you that job. What more do you want? The words poured out in one smooth stream, as if he'd rehearsed them in his head. So he's been holding all this resentment toward me, convinced he's the one who's given the most. The old me would have probably argued with him, debating who's really been sacrificing more, but seeing him in such a rage now, I suddenly laughed. Thank you. In an instant, Jiang Yufeng's anger subsided considerably, and he murmured, What are you thanking me for? The corners of my lips still curved upward as I said calmly, Thank you for making me realize that, in your eyes, I'm just a pathetic creature who can only survive by clinging to you. After speaking, I carried the finished bowls and utensils into the kitchen, turned on the tap, and washed them clean. When I came out again, Jiang Yufeng remained standing in the same spot, completely motionless. Ning Gru handed him a glass of honey water, murmuring softly, Yufeng, have some honey water to sober up. You always loved it before. For the first time, Jiang Yufeng absent-mindedly set the glass down on the table, his face flushed crimson, and after a long pause, he finally spoke to me in a hushed tone. That's not what I meant. I ignored him, turned around, picked up my already packed suitcase, and walked out. Just as I stepped outside, a glass was violently thrown against the doorframe behind me, shattering instantly. Thick, sticky honey water splattered all over me. Then, another box crashed to the ground. 2 ceramic rings tumbled out from inside. 4. I stared at the ceramic rings by my feet, utterly bewildered. Behind me, Jiang Yufeng let out a pained, aggrieved roar. I had this ring custom made for you while I was abroad. I've been thinking of you all this time, Xia Ranran. How could you be so immature and run away from home? I just found it ridiculous. I have no idea what he was thinking. The inner band was engraved with the initials of Jiang Yufeng and Ning Ru, clearly a couple's ring meant for him and Ning Ru, and he actually had the nerve to say it was made especially for me. I didn't hesitate any longer, just dragged my suitcase and checked into a random hotel for the night. After all, I'll be leaving this city tomorrow anyway. In the early morning, after washing up, I headed to the office. Little did she know, the moment I stepped into the office, I heard a chorus of compliments. Wow, General Manager Jiang and Director Ning, you two look perfect together. Even wearing matching outfits, I'm totally shipping you. Manager Jiang and Director Ning, I'm a huge fan of you two as a couple. Would you mind if I took a photo? Jiang Yufeng and Ning Ru stood arm in arm at the center of the office, basking in the admiration of the crowd, while Manager Wang stood by with an ingratiating smile. So these are the so-called head office representatives. When he saw me, Director Wang introduced them. Ranran, this is President Jiang from our headquarters, and Vice President Ning. They're here to check on the expatriate assignments. Jiang Yufeng deliberately turned away, his previously smiling lips now pressed into a flat line, and asked coolly, who's being sent on this assignment? Mr. Wang pointed to me and two others, saying with a smile, these three. In an instant, Jiang Yufeng's expression froze, his eyes darkening. A glint of schadenfreude flashed in Ning Ru's eyes as she immediately stepped forward, feigning shock while scolding. How could you handle things this way? Don't you know our company explicitly prohibits assigning married employees with children to overseas posts? Both the applicant and the approver will face penalties. Manager Wang looked utterly bewildered, exclaiming in a strained voice, but there aren't any married employees here. Jiang Yufeng's expression turned icy as he pointed at me and said coldly, didn't this person request marriage leave some time ago? Manager Wang let out a light sigh and replied honestly, at first, it was marriage leave, but it seems there was a mistake in the application. It was later changed to bereavement leave. Her mother passed away. At these words, Jiang Yufeng's face instantly turned ashen pale, his outstretched fingers stiffened as he stared at me in disbelief, as if struck by a sudden thought. His gaze wavered and he asked in a hushed tone, why didn't you tell me about your mother's passing? I found it utterly absurd. My mother has always held Jiang Yufeng, her son-in-law, in high regard. She often says that marrying him was the luckiest break of my life. And she's been eagerly waiting for the day he'd start calling her mom. But what my mother ended up waiting for was Jiang Yufeng marrying someone else, affectionately calling another woman's mother mom. I said calmly, is that really necessary, Mr. Jiang? Does headquarters really need to meddle in the personal affairs of every ordinary employee? Jiang Yufeng felt as though something was gradually spiraling out of control, and this sense of unease continued to grow. He gritted his teeth, and anger flared up instantly. Of course it's necessary. I am her son-in-law. After all, whose son-in-law are you? Just as everyone was staring in stunned silence, the company's main door swung open. An elderly middle-aged man entered, the fine lines at the corners of his eyes exuding a sharp intensity that commanded respect without uttering a word. Jiang Yufeng's father, Jiang Tai, the head of the Jiang family. Everyone snapped to attention and called out in unison, good day, Chairman Jiang. Chairman Jiang nodded, then turned his head with a smile and asked Ning Ru, Ruru, I just wanted you two lovebirds to make the rounds at our branch offices. What? Did something happen? Recalling Jiang Yufeng's earlier remarks, everyone present fell silent, not daring to even breathe. Ning Ru's face turned pale then flushed, her eyes welling with tears as she forced a smile. Yufeng's brother is Yan Ranran's husband. Now that he's heard she's being sent abroad, he just wants to stand up for his brother. Under Chairman Jiang's piercing gaze, Jiang Yufeng pressed his lips together, remaining silent with his head bowed and fists clenched. Chairman Jiang's expression turned severe as he said sharply, how dare anyone violate company taboos? I'll see who has the audacity. I stepped forward and spoke calmly. Chairman Jiang, there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not married. My ex-boyfriend and I parted ways amicably some time ago. Chairman Jiang raised an eyebrow, looked me over, then turned to Jiang Yufeng. I've reviewed Xia Ranran's file. The young lady is indeed unmarried. Could you have made a mistake? She's being assigned overseas today, let's not make her miss her flight. Rushing to catch a flight, Jiang Yufeng's pupils abruptly constricted. Turning his head and seeing my calm expression, Jiang Yufeng's heart skipped a beat. A flicker of panic crossed his face, uncharacteristic for someone known for his composure at work, as he blurted out, "Dad, it's not him, it's me. I'm Ranran's husband. How could I possibly be mistaken? We got our marriage certificate on November 3rd. She's definitely lying. I was there with her that day to register our marriage." Everyone in the room swallowed hard, stunned to witness such a dramatic scene of wealthy family drama unfolding before their eyes. Jiang Yufeng's expression relaxed slightly, thinking this meant I no longer had a reason to be sent away. Chairman Jiang's frown deepened, his gaze shifting between me and Jiang Yufeng before he finally made a decision. "What are you talking about? Even if she's your ex-girlfriend, your household register has been with me all this time. What are you going to use to register your marriage with her?" 5. Jiang Yufeng, who usually had an excellent, photographic memory, seemed to have genuinely forgotten that he had never married me. Instead, he questioned, "How is that possible? Dad, don't lie to me." Chairman Jiang's expression was serious, and his tone grew impatient. "I've told you to call me Chairman Jiang at the office. You've got no sense of boundaries. I've truly spoiled you. Your household registry has been locked in my safe all along, and when have you ever asked me for it?" Chairman Jiang patiently walked Jiang Yufeng through the events of that day. Then added, "Besides, I remember you were out picking wedding dresses with Ru that day. How could you possibly have had time to get a marriage license? You must be exhausted seeing things. Even, stop getting in the way of Xia Ranran's future." His words carried a sharp, almost threatening tone, warning Jiang Yufeng to stay away from me. His reminder clearly hit the mark. Jiang Yufeng looked completely stunned, as if he'd been struck over the head. It finally dawned on him that he never actually went through with the marriage registration that day. The moment he accepted my proposal, he'd already started having second thoughts, so he deliberately dragged his feet getting to the Civil Affairs Bureau, pretended he'd forgotten his household registration booklet, and then said to me with a guilty look, "I'm sorry, Ranran, let's wait until after the wedding to register our marriage." Okay, there haven't been any auspicious dates lately. Just then, he happened to receive Ningru's request to help try on the groom's suit and practically fled the scene. Remembering everything, he turned and stared intently at my calm expression, his lips trembling without uttering a word. I said to Chairman Jiang, "Mr. Jiang and I are complete strangers. I guess he's just playing a prank on me now because I accidentally mistook him for my ex-boyfriend at his wedding last time, which caused a bit of a scene." Mr. Jiang nodded, looking at me with satisfaction. "Xia Ranran, don't worry about the overseas assignment, I have high hopes for you." I nodded and turned to leave. Jiang Yufeng instinctively reached out to stop me. "Ranran," but Chairman Jiang, with a serious expression, called out to Jiang Yufeng, "Aren't you going to continue the inspection with Ruru today? I also need to share the company's recent development achievements at the headquarters." Ningru finally moved, her eyes, full of venomous resentment, shifted from me to grasp Jiang Yufeng's right hand, her fingers intertwining with his. Jiang Yufeng initially struggled, his eyes fixed intently on me, but it didn't take long for him to give in. Turning to follow Ningru, I no longer cared about these grievances and past hurts. All I wanted was to escape this city as quickly as possible. I headed downstairs and hailed a cab to the airport. As we drove, I watched the familiar scenery whiz by, silently bidding it farewell in my heart. To my surprise, while checking in at the airport, Jiang Yufeng called me. I frowned, initially not wanting to answer, but out of sheer habit, my finger just instinctively swiped past it. With a sigh, I asked, "Hey, what's up?" The voice on the other end of the line was a bit noisy, like the howling wind. Jiang Yufeng's words came out urgent and heavy. "Ranran, don't leave yet, wait for me, I'm almost at the airport." With that, he hung up the phone. I remained in the posture of holding the phone to my ear, my gaze unreadable. The airport? Why would Jiang Yufeng come to the airport? He's so terrified of Chairman Jiang. There's no way he'd come after me. I'm not that conceited to think he's still hung up on me, willing to give up the power and status he's worked his entire life for. But what I never, ever expected was this. Jiang Yufeng actually showed up at the airport, completely out of breath. He bent down and grabbed the handle of my suitcase, pleading pitifully like a puppy about to be abandoned by its owner. Ran, please don't go. I don't care about being CEO anymore. I want to marry you. How about I go steal the household registration book right now and we get our marriage certificate? 6. I know Jiang Yufeng is 30, but because he's been so sheltered by his family, he's still like a child, thinking that if he just puts on a wronged face and apologizes, everyone in the world should forgive him. I used to be happy about his immaturity, hoping he'd always be carefree, but now, I'm utterly disappointed. He chased after me, his face full of pleas, not because he loves me, but just because he's afraid of losing me, his obedient and well-behaved toy. But the world never bends to one's will. It was time for him to grow up. My gaze, fixed on Jiang Yufeng, had become utterly calm. Go home, stop joking around. You've worked tirelessly for the past decade for this inheritance, and now that it's within your grasp, are you really just going to throw it all away? The adrenaline-fueled urgency that had driven Jiang Yufeng to seek me out gradually subsided. His grip on the luggage handle tightened, his lips pressed into a thin line, a stubborn resolve etched on his face. He whispered, "Xia Ran, please don't take that overseas assignment. Okay, as long as you stay in this city, I'll do anything you ask. Do you remember why I told you our company doesn't allow overseas postings? Not long after I was born, my mom, a strong career woman, chose to expand into overseas markets. She was gone for 5 years, but when she returned, she was holding a 3-year-old boy, cradled in the arms of a blonde, blue-eyed man. From that day on, my dad went mad, becoming paranoid and suspicious. He couldn't accept such a betrayal. The reason I'm hesitant about marrying you is because I'm afraid that on the day you stop loving me, I'll become just like my dad." His words were surprisingly frank and direct. I knew this was his deepest, most buried concern. In fact, his mother's actions were even more despicable. To claim half of the Jiang family's assets, she even secretly kidnapped Jiang Yufeng as leverage. Although Jiang Yufeng was eventually rescued, he fell seriously ill afterward. The shadow of abandonment loomed over his entire life, becoming his worst nightmare. That's why I've always been patient, nurturing and protecting his sensitive heart, hoping he would feel and believe in my love. But the truth is, this person who constantly claimed to be afraid of marriage was perfectly fine with his wedding to Ning Gru, and looked absolutely blissful on their honeymoon. Perhaps he didn't even realize it himself. But he harbored an extraordinary dependence and trust for this childhood friend he hadn't seen in years. After 10 years together, "I just want us to part amicably." I kept my voice gentle and said, "Jiang Yufeng, I can see Ning Gru genuinely likes you. There's no need to hide your feelings anymore. As for me, I wish you both all the best and a lifetime of happiness together." Jiang Yufeng argued, a hint of panic in his voice. "No, that's not it. I only ever saw her as a sister. She was the one who saved me from my mother back then. I admit, I might have had a tiny crush on her at one point, but it was just a tiny bit. You're the one I truly love. Xia Ran, you can't leave me." As he spoke, Jiang Yufeng's voice suddenly grew hoarse, tinged with a sob. I just found it laughable. Even now, he still wants to play the ostrich, thinking he can escape everything by burying his head in the sand. In his heart, the inheritance clearly mattered more than me. Dad's approval mattered more than me, Ning Gru mattered more than me, and sometimes, even his drinking sessions with his brothers mattered more than me. He and we've been drifting apart for a long time, yet now, he still insists he loves me. As the stalemate continued, dozens of bodyguards in black suddenly entered the airport. Father Jiang arrived with Ning Gru, ready to confront someone. Seeing his stern father, Jiang Yufeng instinctively flinched, his eyes wide with fear. And he immediately let go of the suitcase handle. I scoffed inwardly. This is the Jiang Yufeng I know, always the overgrown child. Before Mr. Jiang could even speak, Jiang Yufeng swallowed hard and automatically put a few steps between us. He kept looking back as he walked away, then suddenly declared with conviction, "Xia Ran, I'll wait for you. It's only 3 years on assignment. I'll be here waiting at home." 7. I just found it ironic, not even bothering to give him a glance. Who needs him to wait anyway? And he hasn't even noticed I'd already cleared out every trace of myself from that house ages ago. All signs of my existence were long gone. My home vanished the day my mother passed away. I turned, boarded the plane, and never looked back. After landing, I had dinner with the female colleague who picked me up. This colleague, Li Lin, had been expatriated a year before me and we'd met briefly at the company before. As soon as she saw me, she patted my shoulder and exclaimed excitedly, Ran, you're finally here. Our boss has been hounding me to poach you, and I knew you didn't want to go abroad, so I didn't reach out. If I'd known you were coming, I definitely would have contacted you. A smirk tugged at the corner of my lips. That major international company actually hinted multiple times about recruiting me. They even deepened collaborations with our firm and expanded secondment opportunities, all in hopes of getting me on board. But back then, I was love-struck and turned them all down. Looking back now, I realize how foolish that was. My phone, sitting on the table, kept vibrating while we were having dinner at the Chinese restaurant. It was Jiang Yufeng. I frowned slightly. Jiang Yufeng never calls me for anything good. Li Lin, however, looked completely shocked. Is that Mr. Jiang from our head office? What could he possibly want? Ran, pick up the phone, left with no choice. I answered. On the other end, Jiang Yufeng, usually so composed, was trembling noticeably. Xia Ran, where are all your things in the house? Didn't you say you'd be with me forever? Why are you breaking your promise? His voice was loud, almost hysterical. I even had to pull my phone away from my ear. The knife and fork in Li Lin's hand clattered onto her plate, slipping from her grasp. She stared at me, wide-eyed and disbelieving. I simply said coldly, Jiang Yufeng, from the moment my mother passed away, you and I have had nothing to do with each other. After saying that, I hung up the phone. After a moment's thought, I blocked Jiang Yufeng without hesitation. When I looked up again, Li Lin was watching me with a hesitant expression, as if she wanted to say something but held back. I was a bit confused and asked, what's wrong? Li Lin stammered, Ran, the boyfriend you always talk about, is he young Master Jiang? But someone in the company group chat sent me a video earlier. I understand, everyone at the company knows I've had a boyfriend for 10 years, but no one knows who he is. Some even suspect I'm just imagining things, a delusional single person. As for the scene where I crashed Jiang Yufeng and Ning Gru's wedding, begging Jiang Yufeng to go explain to my mom at her bedside, that was even filmed and circulated throughout the entire company as a joke. Now, facing Li Lin, I couldn't be bothered to hide it anymore, so I said frankly, yes, we dated for a while, but it didn't work out, so we went our separate ways. Li Lin seemed to be imagining some dramatic scenario as she looked at me with pity and patted my shoulder. Don't be too upset, Ran. Ordinary folks like us can't possibly compare to someone like the Ning family's daughter. I'll introduce you to a decent, reliable man later. I couldn't help but laugh and shook my head. After starting my official job, I just feel completely at ease, both mentally and physically. It's truly great when no one tries to trip you up or deliberately make things difficult for you. As long as you put in the effort, you'll get the rewards you deserve. A month later, I was promoted to an executive position. This is a status I could never achieve back home, even after working for 10 years and submitting 5 promotion reports. Meanwhile, Jiang Yufeng frequently made headlines. Of course, he was still tied to Ning Gru, attending various banquets as a couple, openly displaying their affection, and earning universal praise for being a perfect match, truly made for each other. Jiang Yufeng must have finally realized that Ning Gru was the true love buried deep in his heart. Maybe it's for the best. Now, seeing them together, I feel absolutely nothing. My heart is completely still. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. It was time for me to return home for my report. 8. To my surprise, when I landed, it was Jiang Yufeng and Ning Gru who were there to pick me up. Jiang Yufeng, wearing sunglasses, looked arrogant and turned to leave the moment he saw me. Ning Gru, however, maintained her gentle facade, her words like daggers hidden in silk. Xia Ran, you seem to have had a better time abroad these past 3 years than back home. You've even put on some weight, probably enjoying yourself too much to want to return, since they came to pick me up on behalf of headquarters. I couldn't really refuse, so I went along with them. I discreetly touched my barely noticeable 3-month baby bump under the winter layers, thinking to myself it wasn't just weight gain. I replied dismissively, yeah, things have been pretty good. When we reached the underground garage, Jiang Yufeng was the first to slide into the driver's seat. Ning Gru, without a word, opened the front passenger door and got in. It was only after she buckled her seatbelt that she suddenly said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Ran. I completely forgot. You should be in the front passenger seat. I'll get out right now, Jiang Yufeng scoffed. Why indulge her bad habits? Just have her sit in the back seat. I was completely baffled. Is it suddenly trendy in China to have guests ride shotgun? Otherwise, why would Ningru insist I sit up front? But since Jiang Yufeng put it that way, I just nodded and got into the back seat. Jiang Yufeng's grip on the steering wheel suddenly tightened. His knuckles turning white, his eyes darkened as he gritted his teeth and said, Xia Ranran, didn't you always say the passenger seat was reserved for your girlfriend? You used to hate when anyone else sat there. I was completely baffled. Oh, right, Ningru is your wife now. Of course she should sit in the passenger seat. Jiang Yufeng's face darkened even more as he drove in silence. The car filled with a suffocating stillness for what felt like an eternity. I quickly pulled out my phone to let my husband know I was safe, not wanting him to worry about me. Yes, over the past 3 years, through Li Lin's introduction, I met and grew close with Cheng Xinghe, a male colleague from the same company, and we ended up together. He was also sent abroad by the company and, like me, had lost all his family, so he never really thought about going back. Maybe it was mutual admiration, or perhaps we found comfort in each other's company. But the two of us always had endless things to talk about. A year later, we got married. By the time I returned to my home country, I was 3 months pregnant, but he still had business to attend to, so I didn't ask him to come with me. Seeing me grinning at my phone in the rearview mirror, Jiang Yunfeng gritted his teeth in frustration, cleared his throat, and said, Xia Ranran, aren't you even going to ask how I'm doing now? Before I could even open my mouth, he started talking to himself. Last month, my dad stepped down and handed the company entirely over to me. Now, the company is mine. Is he showing off to me? Got it. This is like that legendary competition with an ex to see who's living better. My husband texted me back. Glad you landed safely, honey. Was our little one well behaved today? I'll come find you as soon as I wrap things up here. It was followed by a sticker of a little bear making a heart with its paws. A smile played on my lips, and I sent a heart back. Feeling great, I casually said to Jiang Yufeng, Congrats, Mr. Jiang. The next second, Jiang Yufeng slammed on the brakes. I jolted forward and barely caught myself with my hands. I quickly rubbed my belly to soothe the baby, but before I could voice my protest, Jiang Yufeng glared at me, clearly furious. Ningru's gaze shifted between Jiang Yufeng and me before she finally spoke. Ranran, why are you being so formal? Are you still upset about how close Yufeng and I are? Yufeng has missed you terribly all these years. He deliberately added more international trips just to find you. Jiang Yufeng cut him off directly, then turned to me, complaining, Ningru, why bother saying so much to her? Some people are just heartless, still holding a grudge after all this time. So petty, huh? Who's jealous? Me, still in a daze. Ningru seized the moment and asked with a smile, Ranran, you've become even more beautiful. You must have been quite popular abroad these years. Right, I mumbled, it's alright, I'm already married. Beep, someone slammed a fist on the car horn, and it suddenly blared a long, sharp sound. Jiang Yufeng turned his head, his eyes bloodshot, and he asked hoarsely, say that again. 9, I looked him straight in the eye and said calmly, I'm already married abroad. Ningru's eyes lit up, and a smile she couldn't suppress spread across her lips. Xia Ranran, everyone saw how much you loved Yufeng back then. You can't joke about something as important as marriage. Jiang Yufeng, however, seemed lost in thought, then inexplicably curved his lips into a smile. Xia Ranran, I can't believe you've been gone for 3 years and learned to lie. Alright, now that you're back. Don't leave again. All the promises I made to you back then, I can fulfill them now. I didn't know what to say. If you don't believe me, then don't. Jiang Yufeng is the kind of person who's set in his ways. Talking to him is a complete waste of time. As soon as I got to the office, I quickly reported on the achievements of my overseas assignments over the years. While Jiang Yufeng was in a meeting with Ningru, I went to find the HR department. Then, I pulled out my resignation letter. The HR employee stared at me, completely shocked. After all, everyone who chose an overseas assignment came back to become a senior executive, loving their new life. It was the first time he'd ever seen someone return from an overseas assignment only to hand in their resignation. So, he just stammered, Alright, I'll submit it for you. You should get a response within 3 business days. I simply smiled faintly. Turning around, I took a taxi to my mother's grave. This is also why I came back on this trip. All along the way, the villagers kept pointing and whispering about me. Oh, this kid disappeared for 3 years. How come they suddenly showed up? Were they released? Don't talk nonsense. Her husband said she went abroad to do something big, and she's very successful. Honey, who are you talking about? I didn't pay attention to what the villagers were saying. After all, their stories often had a touch of fabrication to them. Standing before my mother's grave, I was surprised to find her tombstone remarkably clean, as if someone regularly polished it. Without a second thought, I knelt down, placed a bouquet of fresh flowers, lit 3 incense sticks, and bowed repeatedly. As I rose, I touched my mother's tombstone and murmured, "Mom, your daughter hasn't visited you in 3 years. Have you missed me? I'm here to tell you that you have a son-in-law now, and you're about to have a grandchild too. I know you don't like leaving home, but your daughter's career is in a foreign land, so it might be a long time before I can see you again. But don't worry, I'll come back whenever I get the chance." A gentle breeze suddenly swept by, just like a mother's usual tender caress. Footsteps suddenly sounded from behind. Jiang Yunfeng was panting heavily, and when he saw me, his steps slowed. He curled his lips into a proud smile, as if he were quite pleased with himself. "Xia Ranran. I knew you'd be here." He deftly took out a handkerchief and wiped the dust off my mother's tombstone. I was a little stunned. "So, you've been taking care of my mom's grave all these years?" Jiang Yufeng lowered his gaze, his long, thick lashes obscuring his expression from me. He just said in a low voice, "I heard from the villagers about your aunt, and I'm truly sorry. I understand you've been wronged, and it's completely normal to feel so upset that you'd want to get away from me. I certainly didn't choose to go on an overseas assignment because I wanted to escape him, as he imagined." I said calmly, "Thank you, but my overseas assignment isn't about you. It's for me, for my youth, for my hard work." Jiang Yufeng suddenly pulled me into a tight embrace, his arms wrapped around me, and he mumbled, "Why are you still being so stubborn? Don't worry, I'm already in charge of the company, and Ningru and I are about to reach the point of a broken marriage and divorce. When that happens, I'll register our marriage with you and announce it to the world immediately." I think Jiang Yufeng's mind might be a bit unusual. We haven't had any contact for 3 years, so how could he even think about going public with me? How could he possibly think we were still together? I immediately pushed him away, terrified of hurting the baby. Jiang Yufeng, completely oblivious to how strange his thinking was, pulled me away before I could even speak. "Xia Ranran. I've arranged a celebration banquet for you at the branch office. Come with me now." The whole way, Jiang Yufeng just kept talking to himself, leaving no room for me to get a word in. It wasn't until I got to the office that I noticed the lobby had been decorated with streamers and banners, celebrating my return. I had no idea when they put them up. Ning Ru, however, wasn't looking too pleased. Her face was tightly drawn. The moment she saw Jiang Yufeng, she visibly relaxed, squeezed through the crowd, and said with a smile, "Yufeng, you're finally here. We've been waiting for you forever." Some of the employees who used to look down on me and make things difficult for me now either hung their heads or acted as if nothing had ever happened, showering me with praise. "Mr. Xia, I always knew you were talented, and it turns out I was right. Mr. Xia, do you remember me? I used to be on your team. I always thought our team leader was exceptionally capable and destined for great things." Jiang Yufeng had a smile playing on his lips, clearly quite pleased. That was until an HR employee, looking rather conflicted, handed him a piece of paper. He looked annoyed. "It's time to celebrate. Can't whatever it is wait until office hours?" Despite his words, he still took the paper, and his face immediately changed. His lips moved slightly. "Resignation letter. 10. The next second, Jiang Yufeng's gaze was fixed on me. His mind suddenly became a tangled mess, and he carelessly set the resignation letter aside. I caught sight of it and calmly reminded him, "Mr. Jiang, could you please sign this? My flight abroad leaves tomorrow." Jiang Yufeng's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at me. "You're leaving tomorrow, Xia Ranran. Are you throwing your future away?" I was a little speechless. "Mr. Jiang, my husband is abroad, and I don't want to develop my career in China anymore. That shouldn't be a problem, right?" Seeing this, Ningru couldn't resist adding fuel to the fire. "Ranran, do you really have a home abroad? If that's the case, Yufeng, why don't we?" She didn't even finish her sentence. Jiang Yufeng's face instantly darkened. Xia Ranran, stop messing around. You submitted your resignation. Weren't you just hinting that you wanted a promotion? I've already decided to transfer you to headquarters as vice president. What more could you possibly want? Ning Gru, currently a VP, twitched her lips in clear displeasure. Just as the tension was building, a gentle, refined male voice broke through. Is this where Xia Ranran works? The moment I heard that voice, I immediately headed for the door, my husband's voice. I hurried over and exclaimed with delight, "Honey, how did you get here so quickly?" Seeing me rush over, Cheng Xinghe held me steady with a start and cautioned, "Ranran, slow down, watch out for the baby." In an instant, Jiang Yufeng was stunned. The entire company was dumbfounded. Some quick-witted people immediately started laughing and flattering. "Mr. Xia, I can't believe you're already married and pregnant. You're truly a winner in life, making everyone envious." "Exactly, with such a handsome brother-in-law, Mr. Xia. You're certainly enjoying quite the good fortune." Cheng Xinghe's ear tips were flushed, but he still looked up and firmly clasped my hand, as if declaring his ownership. "Ranran, I wanted to give you a surprise, and I also wanted to come see our mom." Jiang Yufeng finally snapped out of it. But his usual composure was gone. He'd clearly lost his mind. He took a step forward, trying to pry apart Cheng Xing's hand from mine. "You're lying. Xia Ranran is my wife. You're just some actor she hired to piss me off, aren't you?" Afraid this lunatic might do something crazy, I instinctively reached out to block him, and just like that, his backhand caught him right across the cheek, a sharp, clear smack. Cheng Xinghe pulled me behind him, his brow furrowed, watching Jiang Yufeng with a wary gaze. Meanwhile, Ning Gru had already rushed forward to shield Jiang Yufeng, asking repeatedly, "Yufeng, are you in pain?" Jiang Yufeng just covered his reddened cheek. Trembling all over, 2 lines of tears streamed from his eyes without warning. His voice hoarse, he said, "Xia Ranran, tell me, none of this is real, right? You clearly said you'd only ever love me." I looked at him, my eyes utterly cold. "Jiang Yufeng, this is the last time I'll tell you, seriously. We broke up a long time ago, we have nothing to do with each other. My husband's name is Cheng Xinghe now, and he loves me, and I love him." After I finished speaking, Cheng Xinghe carefully escorted me out of the company. This time, Jiang Yufeng didn't come after me. That evening, I took Cheng Xinghe to a hotel to rest, planning to take him back to my hometown for tomb sweeping the next day. The very next morning, I saw the notification that my resignation application had been approved by the system. At the same time, I saw news of Jiang Yufeng and Ning Gru publicly flaunting their affection, with plans to have a child next year. Their shippers online are absolutely thrilled. Jiang Yufeng randomly sent me a message out of the blue. "Xia Ranran, I'll be waiting for the day you realize your true feelings and come back to me. Only when you lose me will you understand regret." I'm just speechless, it's like I'm paranoid. After my husband and I finished sweeping the graves, I immediately bought tickets to go abroad. Just a few months later, I saw the news that Jiang Yufeng's company had been merged by Ning Gru, directly ousting him from the center of power, transforming him from a favored elite into an ordinary citizen. From then on,